Yeah, I'm gonna go off video though because I'm not my chipper self today.
You look great. We need you to. We want to see you when you talk. Nice wallpaper.
They want it earlier, we can give it earlier.
Yeah.
We want to make sure
Okay.
let's not get caught up.
So thank you everybody for your attendance. Jesse, sorry, we're live.
Hello.
Thank you everybody for attending the special council meeting on Thursday, November the 7th at 4 p.m. here in council chambers. I would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Silks, and the Sinixt people, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. We have no late items. There is one item on the agenda. If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Councillor Woodward, because he's here. Councillor Payne. All those in favor? And that, thank you. Rick, thank you.
Quorum.
Yeah, we gotta make sure we have quorum, which we do. Thank you for that. So, item 5, request emergency treatment funding. Nelson Cares, Nelson Community on Homelessness. Nelson Community on Homelessness has asked the city to apply to the current Health Canada Emergency Treatment Fund, EFT, call for proposals. The proposal application includes 3 items: operating funds for a coordinated access center, 2, a regional inclusion and dignity education campaign, and 3, a regional complex care housing needs report. Staff stressed the need for a number of actions to support a productive and safe delivery of these services. Chief among them is the need for thorough consultation with the business community, adjacent area, and residents. Additionally, given the proposed development of a coordinated access center, a business plan will need to be developed prior to expending funds on renovations. So, councillors, it's not that long ago that we had the presentation from Cheryl Downing, who I see in the audience today, and Amanda Harder, who is the executive director of NCOH. And so we had that on Tuesday. There's a backgrounder here report from staff because of the time pressure in these applications. We needed to have this special meeting to consider what our position would be going forward. So, yes.
When would we have received that?
Yeah.
Is there a printout possibly that I could refer to?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Okay,
Did you see? No, okay.
Make printouts and give you guys a chance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It's not
Is-
actually that thick, we can print out more.
Thank you.
And Councillor Lautenberg and Councillor Tate, they were downloaded or uploaded, so have you've seen it? Okay.
To Civic Info or? I'm just looking at my email now and I don't see anything.
To
Your
its
agenda.
agenda,
The agenda for this.
agenda notes, yeah.
It's the 27 pages attached to the agenda.
Okay, okay.
That one?
Yeah, that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
To the agenda for today.
Correct.
Don't know why.
So you would
And it
have
was
received
also-
that.
Yeah, and it was also sent out by email.
Okay.
So most of it is the application, there's the 3 pages or whatever, which is the report.
I mean, can we have, could we have a 5-minute recess or something? Just
Yeah,
to-
no,
just
sure.
to,
Yeah, oh,
so-
sure.
Okay.
have to come under special meeting. We need to have an opportunity to make sure that we review the pertinent documents. And now everyone has had that opportunity. So at this point, did you want to have anything that you'd like to say? You'll see that there isn't a recommendation in front of us because it's up to council at this point. Given some further information now in the form of the RFP from staff to consider what they might like to do. But did you want to
Yeah, I mean, I can summarize a bit. I mean, ultimately, the community is going through a number of changes with the addition of supportive housing, the announced 44 or 45 additional beds, in another location in town. So, this is also happening in other communities within the region. So there are some large shifts and changes happening in this, sort of community. It's worth noting that, especially when you speak to that coordinated access, like that does, it is a critical piece of, providing solutions to these folks. So while we've had experiences with the hub previously that were both, had positive aspects and some negative aspects with it. I think that, it's worth noting the positive ones were that people had access to a lot of these services, that they otherwise have a challenging time accessing. That's a good thing. It also provides somewhere for people to go and seek community, which is a good thing. I think one of the things that staff really wanted to highlight that we've heard continuously from throughout the community is how sort of that, everything around that is managed. And so that's what I really tried to highlight in here is that, with that, appropriate management or really nailed down management, and it probably comes more down to the actual location of it that allows for that. I think there can be a lot of success here. So, I think on those, and sorry to just speak to that one point, because I think that's kind of the crunchiest point. I think the other ones, the anti-stigma campaign is a great initiative, and the looking into the complex care needs assessment, I think is also, there's value in that as well, of course. So yeah, I think the coordinated access is done, in the right location is a really, positive thing. And with that, I would just highlight that, at the end of the day, will be, if application is made and granted, this is the city of Nelson, like we're applying, right? So there is the latitude granted to, ensure that things are going the way that council would want to see them going. And, so it's not that if the grant is approved, then, the Nelson Committee on Homelessness is just off and running without any checks or balances. So I would say there's also, good opportunity there to be able to work with them. And, I've had a lot of discussions with Amanda, the coordinator, about this, and Cheryl. And, I think that commitment is there to continue to work on this, to make this a community success. So, I'd just say that. The other thing is, there are other, intended intakes for this grant. The next one is intended for spring of 25. So if there is a feeling of being too rushed or being uncertain, that is an option as we've laid out in the options. But from what I understand, the funding for the current 1 day a week with the coordinated access does have an expiry date that's fast approaching. So that would be another gap. And if we can recall, I think it's easy to be from working in this building to remember when the hub shut down the last time. The biggest impact was on the front lawn of City Hall, but I think generally we saw an impact spread throughout the community from not having that place for folks to go during the day, right, and to get some of that access and get on that path, to changing the direction. So. I would leave it at that. I think, the report, apologies if I've, slightly misrepresented it. Anything that was done, had to be fit into the work today. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions or thoughts on that. I'm not sure if, Kevin, you have anything else, or City Manager, you have anything else to add?
Councilor Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll say right off the bat, from my point of view, this doesn't, I mean, the gist of what this is trying to do is amazing, but the speed at which we're going to get it done scares me. I feel like the time I've been here, I've seen the city We do really great projects when we're well prepared and we have time to work out before we leap. And but I realize that's not possible in this situation. I also recognize that the need for this kind of programming is critical. So I was really happy to see that the council would be involved, that there would be a checks and balances kind of situation happening. My main concern would be that if this went ahead and it didn't work out, that it's a bridge burned with our community. So for me, it would be critical that this actually works out and shows a positive result to both the folks who need it and our community. So, as GM said, the location and the management of it, for me, yeah, it's definitely like that is what is going to be the fuel to make this work. So yeah, just that it if it goes forward, that focus on maintaining solid management and good relations, for me, will take this a long, long way. But if it doesn't work out, that worries me about the results of that. And then it's like, one step forward, two steps back. And I hope we can just keep moving forward, because we really need to move forward on this issue. So thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I just add the other critical factor in this is, ensuring that our
Him on this phone.
regional communities are coming along
Yes.
as well, because we can't, be the one that's providing this service and there's no service in those other communities. We saw from the report on the work Selkirk College is doing that those folks are already gravitating to Nelson and Castlegar, and
Yes.
and we need to make sure they also have those supports in their communities, so that people can get that support in their own community and don't have to overwhelm another community because of lack of support. So
Yeah.
part of this would be making sure that we're working with our interior health, BC Housing, and and our neighboring communities, that they also are looking at how to meet this need in their own community.
Councillor Lockenberg. Turn yourself on. Hit your unmute button.
Sorry.
Good.
So what I'm hearing from staff is some caution about the speed and uncertainty related to, well, I mean, if we boil it down, looks like, according to the report, the 40 to 45 current unhoused people. And in the pipeline, we have something greater than that in terms of supportive housing. And my understanding is that supportive housing include the services that the hub would provide. So am I interpreting what you're saying, that not necessarily, given what's coming and the time frame, by the time this new hub is maybe up and running or soon thereafter, we won't have that need anymore? There'll be, like, because those 40 to 45 people will have supportive housing with those services. Am I understanding that?
I'm going to let Mr. Johnson answer your question, Rick.
Yeah, so couple things. One, the by name list, which is sort of that regularly updated list, is folks that have signed up sort of looking to get services and stuff. We're going to have a point in time count coming up this fall that, typically is sort of between that 60 to 80 range for people that are unhoused or precariously housed. So that's kind of the numbers that you're dealing with overall. The exactly what each one of those looks like, I'm not the expert at that, so I wouldn't be able to really further define that. In terms of need and future need for this, I think that, probably collectively everybody in this community would say that hopefully there's not a need for a coordinated access at some point. However, the coordinated access, well, those services will be available in the supportive housing that will be set up. It still leaves the folks that are accessing the shelter with need for those services, because I think there's some models that BC Housing, has tried out, and one of which is coordinated access that's available to those that aren't in the supportive housing environment. Located at supportive housing does not work. So said differently, putting in coordinated access that's open to everybody in the supportive housing location actually has negative impacts on those that are in the supportive housing process, or in that phase. So the coordinated access existing outside of, so the folks move into supportive housing, they have access to all those same services. They have, that's great. There's still a need for folks that are not in the supportive housing, i.e. the shelter, or still living rough or living outside. And I would just note that that's another aspect of this report that certainly we've heard a lot from community, is that ensuring that coordinated access and being able to provide those services really truly does benefit our community, and does not become spread thin from supporting others from other communities that are coming in. So that's something that I've discussed or passed on to Amanda from NCOH, just to really stress that is a big concern in our community, and it's something that needs to be addressed, right? So if all of this, or a big part of this, is predicated on really good engagement with the community, and with the business community, with the residents, then that's going to be something that a plan will need to, they'll have to have a plan for.
Councillor Payne.
Yeah, and I'm just interested in the comparison of the number on the staff report of 40 to 45 and the number that we have on the grant of 88, I believe. In addition to that, so there is some, and with the point in time count coming up, that'll give us a better picture of what it is. But in addition to the individuals in the shelter, I think we need to cast that net broader as we think of the precariously housed and the invisibly housed. We know youth are no longer actually even applying to Cicada House because the list is so long. So whether there would be youth that would be able to get into some of the supportive housing sites for different reasons. But I think the funnel will not empty with the 2 facilities that we have coming forward. And that's just with local folks. I think the economic situation we see ourselves in, unfortunately, also leads to people who are food insecure and may need services outside of what their economic situation allows them, that are accessible through the hub as well. So I think there's a lot of different ways that service will be used. I look at the Seniors Coordinating Society and groups that come together for that inclusion and community and support of people who understand often the situation that they're in. So I don't see them putting themselves out of business anytime soon, as much as I would love to think we won't have the necessity for it when we have more supportive housing in our community.
Councillor Lockenberg, just to check in, just because you're not in the room, did you have your question answered sufficiently, and did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up, and no, it wasn't totally clear to me. So I'm trying to read between the lines here so I can understand what exactly staff is saying. So we've got a couple of references to 44 people, and that the list has ranged between 40 and 80 over the years. And we have that much in terms of how the support coming online. and that the source of any additional people is likely people coming from other communities that don't have this service. And so the concern, if I'm understanding, is that while all of those services are needed for the community that's here now, those services will be provided in the supportive housing that is coming online. So a separate and dedicated hub would be either not needed, like it's and maybe the concern might be that there's a competition. If it was set up, for example, and it was delivering food, then it puts a duplication of service with the food providers, for example. Yeah. So I'm just trying to get a clear understanding of what staff is saying about the need.
Okay, I'm going to try to take a shot at this answer for you this time, Rick.
Okay.
Okay? And then somebody else can correct me when I'm wrong, but as you know, there's many levels of how we support people. Supportive housing will meet the need of quite a number of our unhoused in the city of Nelson when all these projects get finalized. And then hopefully with supportive housing, they too can transition to market housing and other, the whole idea here is to always be moving people up the chain. Is there a need for coordinated access or hub or drop-in or whatever you want to call it? Yes, there is, because one thing that we know for sure, and let's just be blunt about it, there is people that we will never be able to house. Now, whether or not they need what one of the other things is that they're pursuing in this money, and that is the complex care housing, that doesn't guarantee that those people will stay in that either. So it does give a spot for them to go to. My understanding in trying to read the rules around shelters is that the shelter that we have in town shouldn't be providing all these additional services, which it's trying to have done outside of its mandate, increasing like it had started around COVID. It increased when the issue with the encampment outside of City Hall started. And so the shelter needs to be the shelter. And then those people that are in the shelter, they're looking for access to things, the hub would provide them that. Those hub services shouldn't be at the shelter. And because the shelter's been trying to do that, it has created a significant amount of conflict. Let's be honest about that. As you know, I'm sure that your email box is filled up with daily letters from people that live in that neighborhood that still have significant concerns about what is happening at the shelter. So we need to cool off or calm down some of these sort of hot points, I think, around town. And that's why I think one of the important things in going through with this process, first and foremost, is that there has to be a lot of community engagement, and that businesses, residents, people need to be engaged in terms of what they see and whereabouts a new hub might be. So there is a role for a hub. We are going to be getting more housing, but there's still people that will need those services. And as much as there will be services available, 24/7 services available at supportive housing, people, just like all the rest of us, are allowed to be out and about, and perhaps people might want to stop and have a coffee at the hub. If this is a really operating at a high level place, other people might stop. I mean, I used to stop by the hub, not to have coffee, but I'd stop by the hub just to see what was going on. I think when something like this operates well, it also allows for more community engagement, and perhaps more community members would feel that's a place that they could actually go into and feel safe and secure if you run it appropriately. But I don't know if that helps any.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Add just one thing. I think that's, as you see in the report, I think that is what will get defined as they go through the process. Who is it? Who is it for? What is that clientele? What are those service? I think that's the whole point of this planning stage, is to really be clear on, is it sort of more drop-in? Is it, for a certain clientele, whether it's sheltered people or those that are still living rough, or what does that look like? So I think we just need to be really clear on what that looks like, and that's part of that planning. So I think and what the impact of these other housing projects will have on that clientele. So I think that's all the front end work that we're looking to see done in this first phase before they go on, look at renovating a space or defining what that needs in that space are.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. To that point, I think, one of the major issues that was happening in the hub here was the spillover and the hanging out and the stuff and carts, and I think that is, that's it's interesting with this issue, with this homeless issue. I feel like a lot of this kind of visual, it's the visual kind of strewn out garbage stuff, people laying on the street. I know it's maybe not, I'm trying to pick my words here, but it's I think that is where it's really challenging for our community. When it's organized, it's well run, people feel safe. As the mayor said, you could go in there and visit and how's it going, and everyone feels good in accessing the service, whether you're using the service or you're just a community member. That's a great goal, and I think I can see it in my mind's eye of how healthy that would be. But people also, I think, in our community do feel a little bit burned by, or maybe impacted in a negative way by what did happen. And I'm sure that they're pretty gun shy about another one. So I feel that's my worry, is that this has to be done right, because I don't think there's gonna be a third chance. Like, the community's just, if it just goes totally off the rails and it gets out of control, I just don't feel like our community is gonna be like there'll be another chance. And so this has to be done well. I know that there's always, the unforeseen, and you can't control every aspect, but that critical, well-organized inside and outside seems to me like vital. Thank you.
So, Councillor Page.
Two clarifying questions. I'm noting we've seen an increase in the budget on public consultation from what we saw on Tuesday, up to $18,000. Is that right? And then we feel that's sufficient to address the engagement needs. And then noting in the report, we retain a large degree of oversight and latitude in the execution of the project in terms of what the outcomes of that engagement looks like and potential sites that might be proposed before there's spending of money for internal renovations and et cetera. Okay, and so those are places that we're trying to create some semblance of management and control on how this is executed.
And you will see not only the increase in the budget for consultation, which, might need even more money, but the move of not the request for this renovation budget day after tomorrow, so to speak, but in the spring, so like in the next iteration of where that would get spent. So that was before, that was immediate money.
Right.
The
Okay.
450, and now the fact that I think there needs to be time to develop the good business case and whatever going forward. And so I know that Chris and Amanda had that discussion, and that was moved over to March from sort of the right now and spend it all by March the 1st, which was a little bit, definitely one of my concerns as of Tuesday night's meeting.
So I think it's the 25, 26
Six, yeah.
fiscal
Yeah,
year, right?
so it was moved
Correct,
over.
yeah. And if I may, just like a bit of a technical aspect about the budget, especially in those like smaller line items, you know, when the application goes in, typically we would try and group some of that together to allow for, you know, you try to be really precise in applications and then you find yourself really hemmed in on what you can do with the funds. So ideally, we would group it a little bit more to have a bit, if we feel like we need to spend more money on, or, you know, NCO feels like they need to spend more money on engagement, then, you know, be able to shift that around. So just to know that, again, there is some movement and latitude there in both how we'll put, you know, sort of put the final version into the application, as well as when you speak with the funders, they're usually pretty flexible on that as long as you give them a heads up. You don't spend a whole bunch more in one area and then go back to them and say, hey, sorry, we did this.
Oh,
So
okay.
just to know that, you know, there's some numbers there. It'll be more difficult to flex the bigger ones, but the smaller ones, you know, we'll A, try to group them into a larger to allow some latitude, and then B, the funders typically are a little bit more flexible.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I've heard from 1, 2, 3, Rick. Counselor Tate just wanting to make sure that any questions that you have been answered, or any concerns that you would like to raise. And you can just say none, or whatever.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. No, I think I expressed my thoughts on this project on Tuesday, so I won't repeat myself here. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Can I ask one technical question? Because this is such a quick turnaround, how is, I mean, obviously we must have had to put down some things to pick up this piece. Is that true? Like, how are we fitting this into our work plan? Because obviously we were moving along, and then this came up, and then we must have dropped some things to tackle this. How are you guys feeling about?
Yeah. So I can speak to that a little bit. As far as the day-to-day and having to spend some time on this, you know, it's something that is, you know, a portion of my work plan. So it's not as though it's unexpected to spend time with our, you know, social sector that's out there working, whether it's, you know, this issue, we spent, you know, an incredible amount of time on the encampment out front. But, you know, investing some time to get to know the new coordinator of NCO, understand, you know, spend time with, you know, Amanda and Cheryl to really try to understand what's happening there. You know, those are all sort of investments that I view as part of my work plan. Going forward, if, you know, the application were successful, then, you know, the delivery model would likely look something like us signing a contract with, you know, NCO to, or deliver, or whatever that entity is that will be delivering it. And then it becomes more of a project management role where, you know, there'd be a bit of ensuring that things are going well, and then that time becomes split up into much more smaller chunks, in that, you know, finance also kind of does their part to make sure things are going along well. And but yeah, the biggest part will just be that, you know, the progress, you know, marking the progress, understanding how the engagement is going, understanding the results, you know, making sure that council stays informed, that type of thing. So
Okay, so you're
It'll be
saying,
managed, like most of our flow-through grants. It's just the fact that this is, the size of this is, you know, it's just significantly more. That's why we're, like, we wouldn't even normally have a meeting like this to talk about some of our grants. This is the size.
yeah,
Predicates us having a bit of a discussion about which direction we want to be going in, so.
okay, thank you very much.
Okay. So, council, I'll state again that we don't have a recommendation here because of the nature of the beast of how this has come apart, and it's just about the fact that to be able to have an idea of where the city sits. You've got an RFP. We've got a slightly amended version of what the budget looks like. And so you've got options and alternatives. And what I would say is within there is probably whatever recommendation you might want to land on. And so I'm going to leave it to council to potentially put one of the three options and alternatives on the floor. Councillor Tate, I see you've just come back on again. Was there any comments you wanted to make, or summary of your comments on? We had a lot of discussion on Tuesday, so.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I noticed in the application, and I'm just trying to scroll to it, that we haven't touched on that I think is a really hot topic and might need to be handled with kid gloves and perhaps should be taken out of the application maybe, is there's a last bullet on one page that says potential inhalation site. It's on page 3. And I have a curiosity if in the application could unintentionally slow down all the other good efforts that are a part of the package. And I was curious about taking that out so that the other good works can be done.
I'm confused as to what, Kate, what are you talking
She's
about?
on page 3. I just found it. She's on page 3 of
Potential inhalation site that is amenable to the community. Is that the one, Kate?
Yeah.
Right.
I just see it grouped in there as sometimes when you have, this is just my logic side coming. Sometimes when you have a logical argument that has a lot of ands in it, it can, the full package can get stopped because of that one last and. And I'm curious if putting that in there is going to slow down all the other good works that can happen without having that in there. And I just thought I would, because we haven't touched on this at all yet, I just thought we might take a few minutes to kind of think about that. I'm thinking about the resolutions that go to UBCM and they get stuck because there's too much in them. And folks will have a contrary point to one of the things, and so the whole thing gets declined or denied. And I thought we should just maybe look at that because I recall that there was a lot of challenges around that when Interior Health was working at the Yellow House there on Vernon.
Thank you, Councillor Tate. And I was just, you flagged that, and I realized that when I was thinking about the slide deck that we had in the presentation from Amanda and Cheryl, the services at the drop-in center actually on that slide didn't have that last bullet on it, actually.
So, go ahead.
Is that something that we could ask the?
Councillor Payne, as you know, that we can ask for comment if we have a vote to actually have one of the people in the room.
I don't know.
Participate.
I forgot. I don't remember all those things, but thank you for reminding me.
So, because this is a business meeting, so if it's the will of council and they vote to have them
The
speak,
expert witness.
then that's fine. So that's a motion we can entertain if somebody wants to entertain that motion.
Can I just make a comment? For me, and I hear you, Kate, I think that makes a lot of sense. And where I would hang my hat is potential inhalation site. And back to my previous comment about how involved we may or may not be in evaluate. So what I'm looking for is, is there criteria here? And we may want to talk to the proponent, but is there criteria here we want to add in direction to staff around what we would expect to approve a potential inhalation site as opposed to just assuming that it would happen? And I don't know what those criteria might be.
So that could be in the contract.
We manage it. My understanding is we manage, we have sway over how this is implemented.
So where the grant awarded, then a contract will be created, and that would be part of the contract, would it not?
That's fair.
I don't know that it's part of this agreement.
Well, I guess my curiosity is what would be the criteria?
Well, I think now we're in the weeds. Now you've just dropped us into the weeds on trying to move this forward. So that either it stays in or it comes out of this report that if this is part of the document that's going forward, I'd say either it stays in or it comes out, and there's nothing to say that in the midst of doing a community assessment that they're not asking the question about this as part of engagement as well. Councillor Woodward.
I would only say, well, thank you for, Councillor Tate, for pointing that out, because I would say that, it has been a very hot button issue, and I mean, with the experience at the clubhouse situation was pretty upsetting for a lot of that community around there. So could it be that we would actually take this out and then we could approach it at a later date after getting set up and running well for a while, and then approach the issue and saying, look, this has been running well, we're going to take another step, rather than having it in there in the very beginning, which could cause, as Councillor Tate said, could cause some blowback.
Yeah, I think our intent is once they do the consultation and potential location is actually bring that back to council to get your endorsement that you want to proceed with any renovation, that renovation phase. So whether that would include a potential inhalation site or not, I think we're going to bring that back to you one way or the other. But if if you don't want that as part of this current phase, I think they could consider, if we select the site, does it have potential down the road to add inhalation? That's definitely an approach you could take, and keep it focused on the other services versus inhalation at this time. But keep in mind that might be something they want to add later, and what that looks like. So that might be a way to.
I'm just talking,
manage
I just
that.
feel like the initial, okay, community, this is what we're going to do, and this is what's on the list. With this struck out at the moment. Potential, but just in the immediate, in the first reach out to the community, that's not there, because it could bring up a lot of pretty intense emotions about this.
Councillor Payne.
I think one of the things that's interesting is in writing a grant, you want to make sure that you're including, I didn't look at the grant, so I'm not sure what the grantor is looking for, but there are often key things that need to be included to move you to the top of the candidate pile. In a health emergency, poisoning crisis that we're in, maybe this is one of those things. I don't know, but I'm sure it's included here for a reason that the experts that we have brought this forward understand better than I do.
Can we make a vote on, see if we can get a comment from the proponents?
I've asked you if you want to put a motion on the floor. That
I'll,
I'm just the guy in the chair.
I'll move that we speak to the proponents.
Okay, that's
second
been
that
moved
motion.
and seconded. Is all those in favor, and it has to be unanimous consent of the council to hear from the proponents. Councillor Tate, could you weigh in, please? It's required. Thank you. Okay, permission has been granted, so I'll ask both of you, I guess, as opposed to just one of you, to come to the table so we're not shouting at you down the...
And please turn on your mics.
For the record, I did let them know that they likely were not going to be asked any questions tonight.
They came, so now they're here, and can somebody just clarify for me that what I'm reading, when I look at page 1, this would be the submission?
I have not gotten to the point of looking at the application, what the actual application portal looks like. So the submission will look something like that.
It looks like they've answered the question, because I read that, how to apply.
Yes.
Like, I read the grant, so it
Yeah.
looks like, okay.
Yeah, and then when it goes in there, and I do think there's room to move around. I think, if I may quote you earlier, didn't want to get too into the weeds with council about worrying how it was going to be actually applied for. It's more the general idea of, are you behind this application going in based on these factors?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the list of services that were included, the reason we put potential inhalation site is because that service would need a great deal of community engagement. We know that. Lessons learned, right? Absolutely. And it's also something that's really needed by our community. We're in the 9th year of a toxic drug poisoning crisis, and it's difficult because our frontline workers, like we have the shelter workers who aren't able to come out and respond to people. We have probably over 50% of people who are using by inhalation, and we have overdoses outside that our frontline workers either aren't allowed to attend to. Ours at Anchors do attend to it. We have some EOPS services which we are operating, but it's not an ideal model. So we still want to get there with the community. We want to do that in a respectful way. And we know very well that the location for a hub it's really important that the community supports that. And so the reason we put in as potential doesn't necessarily mean that the inhalation site would go with the hub. Maybe it makes sense to put it somewhere else. Our understanding from and I have had a number of conversations with representatives of the neighborhood group, and what I've been told is they're not opposed to an inhalation site. For the most part, it's supported. It's just the location.
Okay.
So that's why we've left it in.
Okay.
It really is up to you if you want to keep it in. But either way, it is a connected and separate issue in some ways, because we will still be driving at having that service. We're long overdue for it.
May I ask a question? So my question, I guess, to you, Cheryl, is we want this to be successful.
Yeah.
And we want it to be successful right out the gate. And we don't want any tripping hazards.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be a tripping hazard. I don't know. We don't, it's hard to gauge where people are at, but there's definitely, there have been some tripping that's gone on in our community over this issue. So what do you think this is a tripping hazard for engagement?
I don't think it's necessarily a tripping hazard for engagement. What I heard from you initially was from Councillor Tate, would this be something if we left it in and the Public Health Agency of Canada had a look at it at the federal level, would they be opposed? I think there's an understanding that with the Public Health Agency of Canada, because they are evidence-based, we have had lots of funding through the years with the Public Health Agency of Canada. In fact, we did harm reduction under Harper, and we were funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada. And we use the word harm reduction. So, this may change as if we have a change in government, but where we are right now, and I think they're trying to get these grants out before an election. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have a concern about that with this current Liberal government.
And I would say, Councillor Woodward, however council wants to land on any and all of this, is that the fact that there's not going to be any kind of construction or renovation or anything the way this is now laid out until basically what would be 25, 26. I think that if you're going to have engagement, is that we've got to not dance around the maypole. So the fact of the matter is the community might hate inhalation, and they can make that message very clear, and then the community will know where the community stands. And this has been the problem. It's not whether or not they're for or against, it's the lack of engagement, which I squarely blame and continue to blame is completely the fault of Interior Health
Oh.
in their project. But it's time that if we're going to engage, let's engage.
Okay.
Let's see where the cards fall.
Yeah.
And at least this council will know how the community feels about any and all of these projects. But the time has come
Okay.
that all of the groups have to be in the room. I don't know what's that saying, if I'm not at the table, I'm not at those little colloquialisms that I can never remember, but like, everybody has to be at the table this time.
Okay.
And if we're not seeing that, then I think that's also where, if we're not happy with how that process is going, that funding in future iterations
Okay.
is something that's going to be much more difficult
So you're
to
just-
obtain or support.
You're just saying, let's just front load it and say, this is what,
You have to get this about,
Right up.
we have to do this community
okay,
engagement.
okay, that's good, thank you.
And regional engagement, like, so hopefully there's a flow through there that allows for regional engagement so that we can,
Yeah.
Okay,
I
Thank
think maybe the only tweak to the application based on what Cheryl's saying is, right now it's tied to the access center. It may or may not be there, so not tying it directly to the access center, and just that you would do this review on inhalation. I don't know how that gets reflected in the application, but right now it seems to be, how it's structured here. These are all the services that would be at the access center, and I'm hearing it may or may
Potential.
not be there.
Yeah, that's why we use the word potential, because really it is dependent on a number of variables. And if we want, there's also the possibility of putting a starred comment next to what potential actually means.
Okay.
And-
I just
yeah.
mean, there's a potential it could be somewhere, a standalone.
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So let's just not tie it directly to that it could be here or it could be. So you're doing a study on inhalation site, where is the best place for it? Could be with the access center, it could be standalone, or could be mobile, or whatever.
okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, that's great, thank you, Cheryl.
Kate or Rick, while we've entertained pleasure of the floor to our guests, did you have a question for them?
Nope, I'm
Thank you.
pretty clear.
Okay. Kate? You hanging in there with your knee?
Yeah, no, thank you to any further questions.
Okay. So we're back to options and alternatives, 1, 2, and 3. I'm looking for council to pick, you can't pick all of them,
Where did we see
just to be clear.
options?
I would like to put the motion on number 1
Okay.
and move that forward.
Is there a seconder for option number 1?
Rick flagged.
Rick? Okay. Councillor Lockenberg. Councillor Woodward, could you just read what option number 1?
Okay, so this is there's 3 options. This is option number 1, apply for the November 8 deadline with the existing application.
Okay. So any further conversation, council, around going with option number 1? Seeing none, I will then ask for a vote. All those in favor? Thank you, Rick. Kate? Did you want to vote? We have
she's-
quorum? Okay, there we go.
Okay,
Thank you. So option number 1 passes. Thank you, staff, for your work. Thank you, council, for coming together on these very short notice. Hopefully, we don't have another one of these again in this term. Everybody have a good evening.
thank you. Do you need a
Yeah, no, I have to go, so we don't have any late items, and I need, finally, number 7, I need a resolution to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Woodward. No, he's just waving at everybody. Seconded by Councillor
Did you
Woodward. All
move
those in
something or
favor of
just-
adjournment?
No, sorry, I was
Thank
saying.
you, and while I
didn't think
have
so.
all of
She
you
got me anyways.
online, just a reminder, tomorrow we have a budget presentation. Hopefully you'll all be able to make it. It starts at 12 o'clock. I did hear that some nibblies will be available as early as 11:30. So for those that are able to attend tomorrow's budget meeting, I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you.